Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. This program is broadcast from Rajamachan University of Technology, Puranicon. It comes to you in two parts. In the first part, we're going to introduce a song to you. We'll talk about who sings the song. We'll talk about its main themes, like what it's about, things like that. Just an introduction of the song. We'll then listen to the song. And then in the second part, we're going to analyze the lyrics. We're going to especially take a look at anything that might be difficult to understand. Difficult vocabulary or English sayings, whatever might be hard to understand. And then we'll have the news and latest updates from around the university as well.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Gary Gray, your host for Musical Musings. I'm an American English teacher here at Rajamachan University of Technology, Puranicon. Okay, so today's song. What we're going to listen to is the song We Are the World, performed by USA for Africa. That may sound like a weird name for a band. What is USA for Africa? That is because it is not actually a band. It is USA, does not stand for the country. It kind of does with the way the whole thing came about, but technically it does not. It stands for United Support of Artists. And so these are a bunch of artists uniting to support a certain cause. Okay, so this is kind of like something we would call in music circles in English-speaking languages, something like we would call a supergroup. A supergroup is when you have these famous performers that come together, although usually if it's a supergroup, you know, they stay together, do many songs, maybe even tour together, have an album together, things like that. In this case, it's really just for this one song. So, this one song, I told you United Support of Artists, so they're artists united to support something. Well, it's USA for Africa, so you can guess that they're supporting Africa. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Before we get into the song, I do want to speak a little bit about how this was formed and the singers that did this. Okay, so this song was performed in March of 1985, so it's kind of a long time ago now. Almost 40 years ago now, long time ago. So this song was done almost 40 years ago, and it was the idea of Harry Belafonte. You might recall we actually did Harry Belafonte in one of our programs. Several weeks ago, we did a song by Harry Belafonte called Turn the World Around. So this was his idea. He kind of started it, but once he got it going, he kind of let other people take over. So the two people that were really in charge of this were Lionel Richie. I've mentioned him before. We did Kenny Rogers in another episode. And the song that Kenny Rogers sang was written by Lionel Richie. And I told you we would do Lionel Richie in the future, and we will. We might do him soon. So we're going to do a song by Lionel Richie in the future. He's an excellent performer. I've actually seen him in concert. He's fabulous. So Lionel Richie was one of them, and the other person is someone everybody knows. It was Michael Jackson. So Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson kind of put this together. They actually wrote the song. Harry Belafonte did help with the organization. All right, so what I'm going to do now, before we get into details about what this song was for and then listen to the song, I want to run through the list of the singers you're going to hear in this song. So I'm just going to list off to you, and even though I'm just listing off the short list, I'm going to list off to you the singers who have little solo parts. But each one only sings for a few seconds by themselves. So there's a whole bunch of them. There are also other singers in the background that don't get their own part. For example, we know Harry Belafonte is a singer, right? We've done him before on this show. He organized this. You expect to see him here. You're not going to hear him in my list that I give of the people who are doing brief solos in the song. But he is in the background group. He's there in the background singing. So there's a background chorus singing for this song. Okay, so the list of the main singers, the ones with the solos in here, most of these people you probably will not have heard of, but a few of them are very popular, like Michael Jackson, of course, and a few of them we've already done on this program. There's also a few who you may not have heard of, but I want you to know their name because they're so famous, and you may have even heard some songs by them. Like the third person on the list, who is Paul Simon. When we get to him, I will mention something about him. So let's go through this list. These are all the people you'll hear in this song, and this is the order in which you will hear them. So I recommend that you actually watch this on video on YouTube at some point. If you're not watching through video today, I recommend that you go on YouTube and watch this video. All right, so the song starts out with Lionel Richie first. As I mentioned, he wrote the song Lady for Kenny Rogers, which we've already done on this program. And he starts it out basically because he wanted to get his part out of the way and done with. Because he wrote the song, so he kind of had his choice. And he wasn't being arrogant about, oh, I want to be first. No, he wanted to get it out of the way because he wanted to be able to just enjoy the rest of it and listen to the rest of it. And as you watch, and if you do watch the video, you will see that he does enjoy the rest of it. All right, so Lionel Richie starts it out, and then the next person to come in is a gentleman by the name of Stevie Wonder. If you watch the video, you'll see he's wearing glasses. That's because he's blind. He is an excellent singer, very famous in America. He is still alive, so is Lionel Richie. A lot of these folks, sadly, have passed away since this was almost 40 years ago. But Lionel Richie and Stevie Wonder are still alive. Lionel Richie still performs. He's still on TV. He does like American Idol and things like that. Okay, third person that comes in is Paul Simon. You may not know that name. He's mostly a songwriter, but he did have a very popular singing career for a while, especially when he was with a partner, Garfunkel. They had the band Simon and Garfunkel. And you might know one of their songs because a lot of people have covered it. Their song, Sounds of Silence. There was a very popular cover of that about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so. So you might have heard of that song. That's by Paul Simon. The next person in is Kenny Rogers, who we know. We've done him before. After Kenny Rogers comes James Ingram. He is not very well known anymore, which is unfortunate, as you'll see in the video. He is quite excellent singer. I believe he passed away, and he was fairly young. And you know, by the way, Kenny Rogers, who we just talked about, he's already passed as well. But James Ingram, I believe, passed quite a while ago, so he was not that old. So kind of sad that he's gone, because he's a really great singer. But he's in there. Then after James Ingram, Tina Turner comes in. We just did Tina Turner a week or so ago, listening to her song, Simply the Best. So she comes next. Sadly, she has passed as well. Billy Joel is the next one. You may not know his name. You will hear him soon. We're going to do one of his songs. He has some really big songs. We will probably do his song that's called Piano Man. That's one of his most famous songs. So he comes after Tina Turner. After that, we get Michael Jackson. Everyone knows him. So he comes in next, and he sings the chorus. Then after Michael Jackson, we have Diana Ross, and it's really special that they put that in that order. You may not know this because you may not even know who Diana Ross is, but Diana Ross was very close to Michael Jackson. She was like a sister to him, even though Michael Jackson has brothers and sisters. Diana Ross was like another sister to him. They were very close, so it's kind of sweet that they put Diana Ross right after Michael Jackson. The next one up is Dionne Warwick. She is, I believe, still alive. She's getting quite old now, but she's still alive, and she has a very interesting voice. I think it's kind of sad that she's not as famous anymore. Kind of like James Ingram, although he has passed, so he can't be famous now, right? But Dionne Warwick is still around. She's not that famous anymore, which, like I said, I think is a little bit sad. She's got a very unique voice, so I really enjoy listening to her. The next person up is Willie Nelson. If you watch the video, you'll see he's fairly old, and believe it or not, he is still around. He is very old now. He's very famous for smoking marijuana, which is kind of funny because he's like the oldest person on this list and he's still hanging around. And that's what he's famous for. He has a unique voice. He's kind of fun to listen to. In real life, he seems like a very nice guy, though. He's a good guy. So it's good that he's still alive. Nice guy. Actually, all of these people are nice, as we're going to talk about what the purpose for this was. This was a good charity thing that they were doing. So all these people are pretty good. All right. So after Willie Nelson, we get Al Jarreau. I'll be honest with you. I don't know a whole lot about Al Jarreau. I know he was quite popular, but I don't know too much about him, so I can't say too much there. After Al Jarreau comes in, there's Bruce Springsteen. If you're just listening to this, like on the radio, and not seeing the video, when you get to Bruce Springsteen, listen for the very scratchy voice. That's Bruce Springsteen singing. He is kind of interesting because he likes to sing some songs that are very, very much about America. So even though he's extremely famous, he's not really quite as famous outside of America. He's still kind of famous, but I'm going to guess that most of you have never heard of him. Maybe a few of you have, but most of you have probably never heard of him. Again, his name is Bruce Springsteen. His nickname is The Boss. We might do him sometime in the future because he's so famous. Next up is Kenny Loggins. He's an interesting one because he was quite famous, but it was a weird career that he had because he never got as famous as some of these people, but at the same time it lasted longer. He had a very long but only moderately famous career. And I believe he's still around. Bruce Springsteen also is still around. Next up is Steve Perry, who at the time, I believe he was still in the band. He was in the band Journey, which is one of the biggest bands ever especially to come out of the 1970s and 80s. We might do a song by them in the future as well, and Steve Perry was their lead singer. In fact, Journey, I think, still tours. They have a different group of people now with them, so Steve Perry is no longer their lead singer, but they're still around even now. Next up is Daryl Hall. He actually also comes from a group, but it's just a duet, Hall and Oates. And what's interesting is his partner, Oates, is in the chorus for this song, but does not get his own. He does not get his own solo. Daryl Hall does, though. Next up is Huey Lewis. He was also in a band, Huey Lewis and the News. He's kind of interesting to me because I don't like his music, but I like his voice. So it's really the style of his music that I'm not really a big fan of. But in this song, because I like this song, when he sings his part here, it's really good. He sings after Michael Jackson. I know I mentioned Michael Jackson a long time ago, but Michael Jackson actually has two parts. So Michael Jackson comes back in again after Daryl Hall, and then Huey Lewis sings. And it was funny because Michael Jackson was complaining about the way Huey Lewis was singing because he was afraid that Huey Lewis was going to make him sound bad because Huey Lewis sounded so good. Huey Lewis's part was so strong. And Huey Lewis refused to change what he was doing. And, Michael Jackson was a good guy about this. So he was like, okay, whatever. And they just did their thing. Michael Jackson didn't complain too much. He just complained a little bit. And Huey Lewis wouldn't change the way he sang. So fine, whatever. They just did it. Next up is Cyndi Lauper, who we also did on this program. It was one of our first songs. We did True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. The next one after that is Kim Carnes. That's an interesting one because even a lot of Americans probably have no idea who she is. Her career was very short as far as being famous, but her one song is awesome. She had a great song. Betty Davis Eyes was the name of her song. Betty Davis Eyes. I know that sounds like a weird song. That's really the only song I can think of that she's famous for. But it's a great song, and she has a great voice as well. So I'm surprised she wasn't more famous. But it happened to be very close to the time where that song was famous, so she ended up getting on this song as well. And then we get Bob Dylan, whose voice is very strange. Listen to the guy who sounds like he cannot sing. I actually don't like his voice. He really sounds like he can't sing at all. So listen for that, and you'll know who Bob Dylan is. But he is very good with lyrics, and that's why he's so famous. He's very great at songwriting. And then finally, we end with Ray Charles. Ray Charles is another blind guy like Stevie Wonder is. And Ray Charles, if you watch the video, you'll see him on the piano towards the end of the song. He is very famous. Again, another one of these ones that may not be as famous outside the U.S., so you probably have not heard of him. But they did do a movie about him called Ray recently, and that starred Jamie Foxx, who I think most of you probably know him. Most of you probably know the actor Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx played Ray Charles in the movie Ray. Okay, so that's all of the soloists. Whew, long list. I told you, it's a big group of people. Okay, so we need to hurry up here because this is a kind of a long song. So let's get on with this. So just briefly, what is this song for? It's USA for Africa. All right, so obviously this is going to be a charity concert or song. All of the proceeds of this song, and there were a lot because it was very popular, all of the proceeds of this song go to Africa. So why does Africa need the money? I think even today we think of Africa as a poor place, but there's a lot of poor places in the world. Why Africa especially? Well, back in the 80s, something that some of you may not be aware of, there was actually a huge drought in Africa. So there were a lot of people starving. There was a big, giant famine in Africa in the 1980s. Lots of people starving to death. So there were a lot of things to fundraise for Africa. In fact, just before this song, in the UK, they had their own version of it. They had something called Band Aid, where they had this song, Do They Know It's Christmas? Honestly, I'm not a big fan of that song, but it was for a good cause, so whatever. And that's why Harry Belafonte came up with the idea for this song, because Band Aid was mostly UK groups. This is mostly singers from the U.S. And that's why I said USA kind of does mean USA, but technically it's supposed to mean United Supportive Artists. But most of these artists in this group are from the USA, whereas most of the Band Aid artists came from the UK. Okay, so let's get on to the song. And for those of you joining us on YouTube, you know the deal. Because of copyright, we cannot embed the video. So click on the link in the upper right corner. Once the song's over, jump back here and watch the rest of the program, where we will go through the song. All the rest of you listening, you should just be fine. The song will begin in just a moment. So let's get to this really phenomenal song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. All right, so we're going to jump right into this because we don't want this episode to go over time too much. So let's get to this. So the basic idea here, I think I've already made clear. It's about helping the world, specifically Africa in this case, but the song is really about just helping anyone, just being a good citizen of the world and doing what you can to help. So let's go through this song as it starts out. There comes a time when we heed a certain call. Okay, so we already have one word where you may not know what it means. What does it mean to heed? To heed something means like if someone gives you advice, you listen to it. So there comes a time when we heed a certain call. In other words, you're going to listen to something that you're being called to do. It could be someone actually asking you to do it, or maybe it's just something you feel in your heart. You know, sometimes you feel in your heart like, oh, really, I should do this. So you're going to follow that. So when you heed a certain call, it means you're going to go, you're listening to it, you're going to do it. You're going to do something. So there comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. All right, that should be clear. That's about unity, unifying. And since we're talking about a certain call, it probably means you're coming together to solve a certain problem. And that's what the rest of this first verse is about. It says, there are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. Okay, so we're talking about people dying. It's time to lend a hand. Lending a hand means to help. So when you lend a hand, it means help. So it's time to lend a helping hand to life, the greatest gift of all. Okay, that's easy to understand. So in other words, there comes a time where we got to do something. Heed a certain call. You got to do something. We all need to come together because these people are dying and we need to help. And we're going to help them save their lives, the greatest gift of all. That's what this is about, to help with the famine in Africa, try to save as many people as we could. All right, the song continues on. We can't go on pretending day by day that somewhere soon make a change. Sorry, I messed that up a little bit. We're all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, you know, love is all we need. Okay, so what does this all mean? All right. So what this is saying, I mean, this sounds a little weird, right? Because we're talking about doing something, you know, getting something done, coming together. So why does it say that we can't pretend every day, day by day, that somewhere can make a change, soon can make a change? Why is it saying we're pretending? Because aren't we talking about doing that? We're going to make a change. Yes, but it's saying someone somewhere. In other words, it's saying that we cannot pretend that someone else is going to do something. You can't expect anyone else to solve this problem. We all need to come together to solve it. That's what that's saying right there, is that you can't expect someone else to make the change. And it says we're all a part of this. We're all a part of God's great big family. It doesn't really matter if you really believe in God or not. We're all on this planet together. That's all that's saying. And the truth, love is all we need. In other words, just if, we should be loving one another. That's really all that's saying there. And if we do, then of course we'll want to do something, right? Because you care about other people, so you'll want to do something. So that's what that's saying, is that it's up to us to do something. You got to do something. Can't just expect the problem to go away. Can't expect someone else to do something. We all need to come together and do something. Then we get to the chorus, and this is where Michael Jackson sings. It says, we are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making, we're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me. All right, so what does that all mean? Okay, so we are the world, we are the children. Obviously, we're not children, most of us. Maybe there are a few children listening to this, but we are adults. It means that we're children of the world. We come from the world. That's all that's saying. And it says we're the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. So again, it's up to us to do something. And then it becomes again a little bit critical of us. Like when we say we're pretending day by day, like in that last section, it gets a little critical of us. It says there's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. In other words, all we care about is ourselves. We're being selfish. We need to stop being selfish because we get to that last line. It's true. We'll make a better day. Just you and me. So in other words, now when it says just you and me, it probably doesn't really mean just you and me because it says we have to come together, right? So that means everyone. But it starts with you and me. It starts with us. You can't, again, because you can't expect everyone else to do it. Because you have to think of this like a group mindset. If everyone else is expecting everyone else to do something about it, then no one's doing anything, right? Whereas if everyone in the group thinks it starts with just you and me, then everyone's going to do it. So that's why it says just you and me. It doesn't really mean just you and me. Everyone's going to do it. Because that's why it says in the beginning of the song, we need to come together as one. But it starts with you and me. Everyone has to have that mindset. Okay, we continue on. Send them your heart so they know that someone cares and their lives will be stronger and free. As God has shown us by turning stones to bread, and so we all must lend a helping hand. Okay? So send them your heart. That just means care about them. In fact, it says in the next line, so they know that someone cares. Right. And their lives will be stronger and free. Okay, so you're probably doing something more than just showing you care. You're showing you care by doing something. So, yeah, we're talking about a famine in this case. So, yeah, these people now have food to eat. Sure, they're going to be stronger. And they're going to be free because maybe they'll be stronger enough that they can work, do something, help their communities, pass it all along so everyone's better off. So, yeah, you're stronger and free. Now we talk about God again, as God has shown us by turning stone to bread, and so we all must lend a helping hand. Okay, that reference of God turning stone to bread, understand that this comes from the U.S., where there are mostly Western religions, a lot of people who are Christians. There are quite a few people who are Jewish. We have a fair number of Muslim people there as well. All of those religions come from a background where they use a similar original text. It changes a lot based on some of the newer texts in their religious teachings. And in that original text, there's a story about God turning stone into bread to feed people. And so we all must lend a helping hand. Okay, so that's just saying, again, help. A helping hand means lending a hand means to help. So here it actually says lend a helping hand, makes it a little more clear. Okay, then we get the chorus again, and we go down to the final verse. When you're down and out, there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall. And then we get, well, let us realize, that a change can only come when we stand together as one. I messed that up a little bit too. Okay, so part of that, the first part, is again sung by Michael Jackson when he comes back in. When you're down and out, okay, that means when you're feeling sad, maybe going through some hardship, and so there seems no hope at all. Okay, that goes with that. So you're going through some difficult times. So you want to really believe there's no way we can fall. When we talk about falling, in that case, it means failing. It's the same as failing. So you want to believe there's no way you can fail. So you need to kind of lift up your spirits. Because, again, we're talking about something that's bigger than us. We're talking about, like in this specific case, a famine. But there are a lot of problems the world goes through over time. Like right now, we have the war in Ukraine going on. There's a lot of political stuff going on in the world as well. They just had a big election in Spain, which I guess it depends on your politics, but I think most people would think that that election came out kind of okay. It's kind of a mess because nobody really won. But the side that I think most people in the world would think is the bad side, maybe not everyone, so I don't want to get too political, but most people think would be the bad side, I think. They were expected to win, and they did not. So even though it's kind of a mess in Spain, it's probably a good thing how that election came out. So there's a lot of political things. We have our own going on here in Thailand as well right now. So lots of political stuff. You got wars like what's going on in Ukraine. They're still really poor in Africa, maybe not as bad as it was in the 1980s, but you still have a lot of poverty and a lot of hungry people, even here in Southeast Asia. Maybe not so much here in Bangkok, but lots of places in Myanmar and Laos and even Vietnam and Cambodia, even parts of Thailand, really out in some of the more rural areas where a lot of people just don't have much. So there's a lot of people struggling in the world. So what this is saying is, you got to lift your spirits up when you're down and out because there are bigger problems than us. And that's why it says, let us realize that a change can only come when we stand together as one. So, put aside your own problems. Yeah, I know it's tough. You're down and out. There seems no hope at all. You need to put that aside as best you can. Sometimes it's not easy, We all go through hard times sometimes. Sometimes it's not easy to put our own problems aside. But we need to try to, so we can make the world a better place. There are bigger things, bigger problems in this world than whether or not you can afford the new sneakers you want. So that's kind of what this is saying. All right, and then it repeats the chorus and that last section, and then it repeats the chorus, and then it repeats the part. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives, so we repeat that part as well several times. And that's the end of the song, but it does go through that repeating quite a few times. All right, so again, I'm going to strongly encourage anyone who didn't listen to this program in a way in which they could have watched the video to go on YouTube and watch it. It's really phenomenal, the number of singers that are in this whole group singing this song. All you need to do is search on We Are the World. It was a very famous song. It should be one of the first, if not the first video that pops up in your search. It's really phenomenal to see all these singers together as one and doing it for a great cause. So you really got to think that these are also good, decent people because they didn't get paid for this. This was for a charity. They didn't get paid. They showed up at the studio, and I'm sure not all of them live right there, so some of them probably had to fly out to wherever the studio was, probably in California, I believe. Some of them probably had to fly out just to do this, spend their own money. Yeah, sure, they're rich. Yeah, I know, they're rich, a lot of these singers. But still, rich people, a lot of rich people are greedy. They're not gonna, that's how they got rich. They're not gonna give away their money. So all these singers doing this for a really good cause. It's really worth watching this, seeing these great singers. All of them have such good voices, and again, good people. All of them doing this for a good cause. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us again for our Musical Musings program. Make sure you stay with us, and also make sure you tune back in next week for another great song coming up. And please don't forget, subscribe to our channel.
Musical musings, musical